Good morning, everyone. Kevin here from Skywatcher, and welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. Do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We take a look at everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. Now, before we bring our special guest in today, just a couple announcements. We're in the middle of the month. There's still plenty of time for you guys to enter the target of the month. Next month's going to be kind of challenging, so be prepared. And then we will get those patches out probably by the end of this month for everyone who contributed last month. And yeah, we'll get those going. If you're looking for some cool gear, everything pretty much is on sale right now, nearly. So we have our Tube-tacular savings sale. We have the Dobtastic savings sale. Mount Madness is getting close to starting. I think that starts next week. And Promo Palooza. You can thank our marketing department for all these awesome names, but they stick in your head. So if you want to get some cool stuff, a bunch of stuff is actually on sale right now in time for the holidays. And we have a ton of stuff in stock now. So get out there, get some stuff. And, of course, there's Will. I didn't mean to drag Will on here. Wait a minute. I haven't transitioned Will onto it yet. It's just my screen. Wait. I didn't even show you guys this. Hold on. I've got too much going on. There's all the cool stuff that's happening. Go to skywatcherusa.com. There's Target of the Month over here. You can get your totem patches. VDB1 is the target for this month. So you can check all of that out as well. But yeah, so there's plenty of time to get things going. There's all kinds of sales. skywatcherusa.com is where you can check all of that out, as well as the target of the month. And then really quick here, I should have had this up. And sorry, Will, that you're just kind of sitting off in the wings there. I didn't have the last window that I wanted opened. Let's see. What's this website called that I should know off the top of my head? Because I talk about it every week and I can't remember what it is. There it is. Threadless. Our Threadless store. If you need some cool swag to go along, go away. With your Skywatcher product, you can head over and pick up some cool stuff from Threadless that match your products, or just some fun. There's some cool shoes there too. So anyway, lots of cool things going on. Lots of stuff on sale. Go get yourself some fun stuff. Get yourself a CQ350 maybe. There's mine sitting back there. Learning how to use Nina, which has been fun. ASCOM drivers are great. Anyway, so let's get started. Let's go ahead and bring Will in. He's hiding right there. There's Will. Hey, Will, how you doing?
Great, man. How are you doing? It's a pleasure to be here, Kevin. So thank you so much for having me on here. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I know we talked about this at Texas Star Party in May. So yeah, it's been on the books for a while. Those of you who don't know Will Young, also known as Deep Sky Dude, he's on all the major social media platforms. He's an extremely good observer, deep sky observer. Getting into imaging, terrible idea. Getting into solar imaging, terrible idea. And night vision, actually, that was the terrible idea that you gave me. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, we cost each other a lot of money, apparently.
Yeah.
Hey, kid, you want to buy a watch? So it's like,
I don't know. You said Mountain Madness earlier, and I'm like, what? Like, I guess I need to go online then and see what's going
on. But yeah, so and then Will is also a fantastic musician. He releases stuff under the name Deep Sky Dude. You can get it on, you can listen to it on Spotify, but you'd be better just buying the records and supporting him. They're not that much money. But they all go to help him producing more of these things. And they're awesome astronomy-based atmospheric music. And I have all 4 of them. I need to get number 5 because it's coming.
It's coming eventually.
Eventually.
I keep going back and forth on track listing.
Okay.
And I'm the only, I don't have a producer. I don't have anybody here in my ear telling me I should, not do this or that. So I'm very indecisive. So I apologize for the delay, but it is almost ready. It's about 89, 90% done. So
nice. But yeah, we'll be digging into music. So Will is a man of many strengths. So we'll be talking about all that today. But anyway, well, I start all of these off the same way. How did you get started in this crazy hobby of astronomy?
Well, I was about 10 years old. I don't remember exactly the moment, but it would have been a winter night with Orion, probably. And I think I would asked my dad, like, what is really going on right here? And he explained, well, those are suns that are just really far away. And that's, and I was like, wait, what? And it opened a new door in my brain, right? You know how it kind of does, whatever it is that you stumble into, and whether it's a planet, usually it's Saturn or something. For me, it was just the naked eye observing of the night sky, and and then the only thing I had was sky and telescope, because remember back in those days there was no internet. I'm 40 now, so back in when I was 10, there was nothing, like 93, 94, and sky and tel was basically the only game in town. I'd read cover to cover. And as the years went by, I just kept getting further and further in. And I took my first astro image, believe it or not, in 1997 or 96 on 35 millimeter film.
Nice.
So you had to like make sure everything was good, and then I was holding the shutter down with my finger, so my star trails were blurry because I was shaking. It was cold. You had to wait 3 days to bring it down to the Kmart to get the film developed, and then oh yeah, my focus was off. I was shaking. Okay, so none of them are great, but
Yeah.
at least I was out doing it in this very same, front yard that I still live here today. And so over the years, it kept, I just consume anything, documentaries, the universe on History Channel, I'd consume it all. And it just got worse and worse. And I mean, here we are today, and I know it's probably this very similar story for you.
Yeah, it all starts with one little nudge. My mom got me a telescope for my 9th birthday on a whim, and I've done sports and stuff. It was before I got into music, but just wasn't my thing, and kind of caught on and was like, wow, this is cool. And then it snowballed into what it is today. And as you can probably relate, it snowballs into racks of equipment that you don't have half the time to use and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. But luckily on the equipment front, I've kind of been slow, in grabbing certain things, because for a lot of my life I was a broke college kid, and then broke post-college person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then lately I have been picking up a few things here and there, solar H alpha stuff. I used to do all my solar and white light, but now I've kind of stepped up, I guess,
Sure.
or next level or whatever. But yeah, it's a progression, man. And that's the thing, is that I encourage people to not worry too much about the gear side of things, especially now, because gear is so prevalent and it's so easy to get, and it's a lot cheaper than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Cameras are a lot cheaper. So
Very obtainable now. It's still a little pricey, but it's far better than it used to be.
yeah, you're kind of paying for what you get, because back in the day, you would have dreamed about having a CMOS camera that does this quantum efficiency, whatever, right? Or a Dob that was over a half a meter wide,
Yeah.
So, but as time goes on, I guess that's kind of how things go.
Now, I know you brought up Dobbs. Both of us are, we dabble in kind of all these different arenas, astrophotography, solar, and stuff like that. But you're a Dob observer. Every time I see you at Texas Star Party, if the weather allows, you've got your Dob out there, and I've got my big Dob. What got you into Dobsonians? Because there's still a niche of them out there, and but everyone's so astrophotography oriented now. But there's fewer and fewer of the big Dob people out there, but there's something really cool about observing with, say, like a 15 plus inch scope.
Yeah, when I was a kid, again, always goes back to that. I would look at Sky and Tel, and you'd see all the ads. You'd see like, oh man, look at this scope, or you'd see, they'd always have them pointed just right where you could almost see like down inside, but you couldn't really. So it was mysterious to me about what was going on in there. And I always noticed that, they had the smaller Dobbs that were, fairly reasonably priced, but it kept getting bigger and more expensive. And so I was like, well, I want one of those bigger ones. Well, my family, like growing up, there was no way we could have ever afforded anything like that. I mean, I literally had a broken pair of binoculars duct taped to a broken tripod, and that's how I saw the Orion Nebula the first time, because I knew I knew M42, whatever that was, is right there. I got to figure out a way to get it, and binoculars weren't working for me. I wanted something stable, right? So as a kid, I always just dreamed about the Dobsonian style for whatever reason, and the Maxitovs. I really enjoyed the Maxitovs for some reason. That silver disc in the middle, for some reason, intrigued me. And now, as an adult who knows astronomy a little better, I know why both of those telescopes exist, right? And so, for me, it was, I want to do photography and stuff, but I want to absorb photons from, a distant galaxy or star cluster or whatever. And, so my club had an 8-inch. Cool. So I loaned it out for like 9 months straight. And I did like over half my Messiers with that 8-inch. 8-inch Coulter, the red tube Coulter Dobsonians from back before we were alive, right? It's a great scope, still works fantastically. And I knew, Dobs were going to be it. I knew the sky, I knew constellations. So give me a Telrad and a Dob, and I can put the thing on here, and this was true back in the day. So I got me a 12 as a light bridge. I got it in 2010, I think. And that was my first like adult, real scope. I hadn't really had nothing else before that except for a Celestron first scope. I bought one of those in 09. And I took my first image of the moon on my iPhone back in 09, and I was like, all right, no, I'm getting a loan or whatever I got to do to get this 12. And then I got the 12. I got a 16 after that. My wife's dad gave me his 16 because it was too much. He didn't really know how to use it, and he was kind of burnt out on it. So I took that and used that, and now we're at the 22 level, 22 Obsession Ultra Compact, like you said, which gets set up depending on the weather. Like this year at TNT, there was just a ground tarp, unfortunately. But
yes. That's our new invisible cool 1 meter that we brought out. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, but it was cool though because I got to hang out with y'all, at the Celestron booth and Skywatcher. My one of my best friends in astronomy, Greg Bragg, was there, and you're there. I consider you a friend too, for sure. And Trevor and his wife Ashley were there, which was cool to get to hang out with them and kind of observe their methods and stuff. And so it was really cool. It was almost kind of almost like a family reunion instead of a star party, more or less, because it was just kind of more of a hangout session. But and that kind of happened at Okie-Tex too, which is kind of a sad
I heard
thing.
Okie-Tex was another soggy one this year.
Yeah, it didn't really rain so much as it was just cloudy. I mean, it did rain a little bit, but it was cloudy. It wasn't 2018, man. I don't know if some of y'all Okie-Texers out there might remember Okie-Tex 2018, which we affectionately call Sokie-Tex, because I think there was another Sokie-Tex prior years. But that was 2 hours of observing, and the rest of it was like a Silent Hill video game or movie. You were just living in this fog mist. People were getting stuck. Their trailers were getting stuck. So I just waited till the last day, till they were like, y'all have to be out of here. There's a killing freeze coming. That's what the National Weather Service sent out an advisory. It's like killing freeze. I'd never even seen that nomenclature before. So I was like, I'm out,
Yeah.
And then I had to drive through basically a tornado on the way home. That was a wild year, but luckily almost all of the other years are not even anywhere close to that. I mean, as you know, you've been to many star parties too. So
yeah, there's definitely all of you out in like the Midwest area. Like once you hit like Texas, you guys are cut from a different fabric for observers. And it's pretty funny if like none of you have actually, if you're from the West Coast or the East Coast, my favorite thing is going to NEAF and you have everyone from the East Coast being like, we haven't been able to observe in months. It's like, well, I'm from the desert. So
yeah, so we get tired of it.
Yeah, it's like I've imaged every night for the last 2 weeks, all night. Like I need to go to bed. So, but yeah, you do get spoiled. But yeah, I have noticed everyone from like that Midwest, like Texas, Oklahoma, you guys are kind of hardcore when it comes to like the weather. And it's like, you guys are like human barometers. And it's like, we should probably go inside. And you're like, nah, it's fine. It's just like,
you'll be all right. I was flying my drone at Okie-Tex and I could hear the wind on the mesa coming. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I immediately started flying back and people were like, you ran out of battery? I was like, no, man, something bad's about to happen. And then it was just this massive gust hit us. And it is, you're right. It's like, after you've done this for a while though, you kind of have that gut feeling a lot of time. You kind of see the writing on the wall sometimes. And hey, astrospheric, man, while it's inaccurate at sometimes, there are many times where it's really, kind of spot on. And if you pay for it, you get extra models. So where that normally that blue square is, where you'd be like, oh, we're going to be observing. They give you the other models, and that the other three models say, it's a whiteout. So it's like, oh, well, whatever. So you kind of do it based on that, kind of based on your gut. And I'm a hopeless optimist. I'm always like, oh yeah, it's supposed to clear up, maybe, and it's just, we end up just sitting
That's
around.
good to know because I use atmospheric, so I need to go buy that destroy your optimism filter that they apparently have built into it, or it's like, I think it'll look good. It's like if you pay for it, it actually tells you the truth. So.
Well, in some ways, because I think, like I said, it gives you like what three or four other predictions or models.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, basically, it kind of looks like a blue square with some lines at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll know if there's a blue square and there is nothing on the bottom, that means they're all in agreement, and you're gonna have one of those sapphire blue days.
Guess I know what I'm doing after this. I'm buying
exactly. Yeah. So astospheric is one that I use, and then I tell people this all the time. Don't base your star party attendance on the weather, because you almost always will be disappointed. If you're going to go. But, let your telescope's attendance at a star party vary, right? Go and hang out and meet new people, but maybe not. If it's going to be like rainy or whatever, maybe set your scope up the next day, or whenever it's going to get clear, because it usually does get clear at these things. So just give it time, and every once in a while you have a washout. But the thing about washouts is, like we were saying earlier, you get to hang out with your friends. If you don't know anybody, come hang out with people like Kevin and I. We will introduce you to everybody else, because we get bored hanging out with the same people sometimes. So join us, and we'll plug you in. And everybody out there is really cool. There's like maybe 0.1% that are curmudgeons about the weather. They get kind of down and upset, and that's how it goes. But we'll show you who those people are.
So. Yeah, point them out. But yeah, I've been to Texas Star Party enough, and I know you're kind of help with the organization of it, I think, more now. But there's been some nights where people are like, I'm done, we're leaving, and they leave. Yeah. And then like the last night's like legendary. Like, Larry Mitchell put his 36-inch job, and we saw the quasar in the middle of the black hole in the middle of M31, and it's just like they were waving back at it. It's just, you hear crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, every time a star party's over, it's like that next week, it's all blue across astospheric.
Exactly. That's always how it freaking works.
Very frustrating.
But yeah, if you haven't made it to some of those Midwest star parties, it's definitely worth it. The flavor, it's just a different flavor, but I think that's just culturally how it is out there, in a good way. It's kind of cool to be out there with some of those, and I've noticed every star party just has a different vibe to it. So
exactly, yeah. I mean, I used to do 4 a year. I only do 3 now because one went the way of the dinosaur. Hodges Gardens Star Party, rest her soul, or its soul, whatever. It was a great star party. That's where I was first introduced to night vision astronomy in 2013, actually. But Okie-Tex, like, you've been to Okie-Tex, you've been to TSP, you've been to these other ones. You're right. They all have their own little vibe and their own little
culture, if you will.
Yeah. And it's, because Okie-Tex is kind of like a Burning Man for nerds, right? It's just a bunch of people in a place, and there's no structure to it, right? I mean, there is.
Civilization collapsed. This is what we would do. So.
Yeah, it's Mad Max out there, man. There's people driving weird cars at each other and stuff, no. But it is its own little culture, and it's cool because you have these buddies that hang out over here. This is where they always set up. They have for the last 15 years. And there's like a row of them, Tom Weidman and all my buddies over there. I'm talking to y'all. And then over here, you've got this group from like maybe New Mexico, and they're all hanging out, and that's their spot that they always go to. And I'm no different. I started hanging out with a certain group of people, and now we kind of all go to that same little area of Okie-Tex. And same thing with Texas, but the cultures are different because of the 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 places we go. So Camp Billy Joe has a different set of rules than like the Prude Ranch or the X Bar Ranch, or wherever you go, right? So yeah, there is a different culture.
Well, and
And
even at Texas, if you guys haven't been to Texas, there's three main fields in Texas. There's the upper field, middle field, and lower field, and every single field has its own vibe
oh
and
yeah.
the way you do it. And if you're one of these people that's like, I might have some light accidents, don't set up on the upper field. Like, you will be crucified that day. So,
I almost did a spit take there. Yeah, and what's funny is we have the guys who run Okie-Tex, right? All of them are imagers basically, and they all set up on that really far southern end of the upper field, which is where I've always observed, because that's where my Houston and Beaumont crew from Texas observes. And those guys they're great. I mean, great astrophotographers, but they don't really bother anybody because they're way down there. And we do have imagers up by us and stuff, and it's usually the biggest problems I think we have are like people's power supplies that have that green light, or whatever kind of light is on their rig. You just tape it up. It's not a big deal. And I'm kind of like one of the main dark out police, if you will, for TSP now. So I've been really kind of working to change, the culture of like, TSP is a bunch of people are going to yell at you. It's not like that. And maybe it was in the past before I started going, but I've never experienced that. You'll get other people who aren't involved with TSP yelling at you sometimes. I've heard it at Okie-Tex too, right? Where somebody has a bright computer screen, but we try to help people at TSP, especially now. And at Okie-Tex too, I'll come over and be, hey, can I tape this little thing up for you? And usually if you approach people a certain way, they're like, oh yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was a problem. It's like, hey, it's not a big deal. I'll just, here, I got some extra tape and let me help you out here.
I think that's a big thing now, especially now that we've gone through this like surge of interest from COVID. You have a lot of newcomers who I got some money during COVID and I got some time. So I got in the hobby and all I've done is my backyard. And it's a very different animal when you go to a star party, especially when it's your first time. It's like you don't know the protocol. And even if you do put some effort into it and understand, it's more than just a red flashlight. Like I've done it before at Texas Star Party where you have a headlamp and it's like, well, it's red. It's like, yeah, but when you look around, you're hitting people with it, and
that's the worst.
It is red, but you're still, so it's the little nuances. And as someone who does outreach a lot too, I've done events where people are like, don't touch the telescope. But it's like, well, let's back it up a little bit. If you actually take the time before your event, or like you said, it's all how you approach people, where it's like, hey, we have a step ladder at every telescope and it's there for you to hold on for stability so you can get more comfortable. And if you touch the telescope, it's not a big deal, but it'll take us time to move it back to the target, or it's just, but if you educate them on, hey, I don't want to give you a hard time about it, I'm just telling you this benefits you in A, B, and C ways. It's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't think about that, or I didn't know about that. And then after that, they know, and they got the protocols down, and they know how to be a better observer. So it's taking the time to educate people and not just like putting them down. Because I've seen so many events where people are like, you're just kind of verbally beaten up about it. And it's like, well, cool. They're never going to come back. And
yeah, and that's the thing. And I got to commend you on your outreach. You do a lot of it, and that's one of my true passions too. I haven't done a lot of it recently, but back in the day, I used to do a lot. And you're right. You can tell the people who are kind of new at outreach because they're like, oh, that's your scope. It's more like hold on to the ladder, like you said, because if you grab the scope, it'll move. You won't see a steady image.
Mm-hmm.
You won't see beautiful Saturn. You'll see this. So it is. You're right. It's 100% about just because people don't know. We bring our Dobbs and these telescopes out, and people have only ever seen these things in pictures or in magazines or online with somebody looking the wrong way in a commercial. You know what I mean? Like one of those commercials. So and outreach is extremely important. Take Kevin's advice, get out there and do some outreach, y'all, because you will change someone else's life. I promise you, it's gonna happen.
A lot of times you don't see it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But there are times where people I've had people come to my events and you don't hear from them again, and like a year later you get an email. It's like, hey, I got my telescope. You don't even remember them. I got
Yeah.
my telescope and I want to come out and help, or I need a little bit of help. Can I come to an event? Okay, cool. And then they get there. And it's like, oh, you're that dude. It's like, yeah, I I saved up and I bought a telescope and I really like it. And it's rare. A lot of people you never see or hear from again. But
Sure.
you can't go into outreach thinking that you're going to change the world with every single person. The small victories are, for 5 minutes I got you to think about the big picture.
Yeah.
Um um
Or that one kid or that one adult that has that wow moment. You can see it on their face when they pull their eye away from the eyepiece and they look at you and they're like, that's not real. You know, especially like Saturn, right? That's a sticker. You know, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
look back in there and you wave your hand in front of the thing. And it's, no,
like I
that's
did it was a corporate event. It was for a bunch of lawyers. They were all really cool, but this was like last week I did this event.
oh,
Um and just so happens that the Lakers from LA were staying at the same hotel because they're getting ready to play the Suns. I don't know anything about sports. I know who Kobe was. I know who some of the bigger players are, but
yeah.
yay, chase the ball from that side to that side and you get paid a lot of money. That is my
Football, but that's yeah, you're right.
cliff notes of um but I don't know. I'm sure some of you know, but Darvin Ham, who's the coach of the LA Lakers, and I guess he's a. I'm sorry, I don't know these things. I'm a nerd.
We are nerds, man, because I'm like, who?
But his wife was walking by, apparently. Hi, D, if you're watching. She's like, "What are you looking at?" It's like, Jupiter. She was all adorned with Lakers stuff, but it's like, I don't know who you are, but I see that you're interested. It's like, here's Jupiter. Sure. We sat and talked for 45 minutes. She knew nothing really about it, but she thought it was really cool. And we talked about folklore and how things work in space. And she got to see like half a dozen things. And it was cool. I don't ever expect to talk to her again in my life. It was a pleasure too. She was very nice. And a lot of people you probably won't ever see from again. But
right.
For that little brief window of time, I got to show you something cool. Whether you're a big cultural figure or just a kid, I got you for just a few minutes to think about the big picture. We got to shove away all the political trash or what's going on social media or what the Kardashians are upset about now. It didn't matter what was going on. Right. For those few minutes, we just got to talk about the cosmos and where we fit into it. And everything else is just noise. And that's what I like about outreach. And I kind of went on a little rant there, but it's,
well, you just described what it's like for us at a star party, right? We don't talk politics or any of that nonsense. We're there to observe.
And if there's one thing I know when I set foot on the field at Texas Star Party, don't ever bring up politics. And don't ever
if you want to, but don't blame us.
Yeah. And also that's a right to carry state. If you can't see it, there's a good chance they have it on them somewhere. But it's just everyone. But you can go in, and I know there are people out there, if you're like East Coast, West Coast, you can have your judgmental thoughts about either way. It goes both ways politically, and I'm not going to get into it.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you step onto the field, no one cares. Like, no one cares. It's like, you like telescopes? It's like, my wife's so tired of hearing me talk about telescopes, but you like telescopes, so I'm really here to talk to telescopes with you. And I've had people show up to our booth. It's like, oh, what was wrong with his telescope? I don't know. I've been here for 45 minutes. His name's Jim. He's had 3 heart attacks. He's on this heart medicine, blah, 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 blah. And he owns all this gear.
Mm-hmm.
We all just want someone to talk to that resonates with us, and everything else just melts away. And that's what I love about astronomy.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, because there's way too much for us to talk about in that world. And like you said, it's like if you're playing guitar. I hate to bring that up, but I mean, come on.
We're gonna get to that anyway.
The world melts away, right? Yeah, the world. You know, because you play. The world melts away. It's really hard to be upset about X, Y, or Z in your life when you're in the middle of a riff that's kind of complicated. Because if you're thinking about the woes of the world while you're trying to do your art is not going to shine through. You really have to put it all away. And that's what I feel
Yeah.
like star parties and astronomy is like for me. I have to put everything away to go out there and do all that. And
It's
but
kind of
and on top of
it's
that, I
a,
get
I'm sorry, it's a bit of a
oh yeah,
microcosm when you're out at a star party
yeah, no, it
because
is.
you save up, you save your money. I know guys who go out there, that's their trip. That is the trip. That is the Super Bowl to them. And that's their whole week, is their whole year is based around this.
Yep.
You're just out there to have a good time, and yeah, you're in a remote spot. You shut the world out, and we're just
Yeah.
talking shop. So
Yeah, because like most of these star parties have really bad Wi-Fi or almost no cell
yeah,
signal.
we
You
could
don't know what's
nuke
going on
Los
over there.
Angeles, and we wouldn't know until
Yeah.
the following Monday. Be like, oh crap,
What's that
that
mushroom cloud
yeah,
over there?
that happened. So
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, man, because I do like I disconnect a lot, you know. I just kind of besides the live streams and stuff that I do out there or whatever from time to time, but it's good to just pull away, go out and commune with the universe because when you're standing in the shadow of the Milky Way, when the Milky Way is literally casting shadows on the ground like it does at Texas Star Party and Okie Star Party, nothing else matters, man. You're just
mm-mm.
like, what are we looking at? What are y'all? Oh, come look over here. You hear somebody yell it, come look. It's like, okay, well, I was in the middle of finding something, but I guess I got to go see the iris or, the helix or whatever they're looking at, and yeah, it's a beautiful, it is. It's a family reunion for me because a lot of these people I only get to see once a year,
Yep. I only get to
people
see
like Brett.
you at
Yeah.
Texas, so
Well, and Neef now because I'm a Neefer
yeah.
if that's a word now. So I will
I
probably see
haven't been
you
heard that
this
way,
year.
but yeah, welcome
A
to the
Neefer,
club.
yeah.
So,
It's a good thing.
um,
You haven't got a Neef, go.
I know there's a real quick question here, just because how do you dim down headlamps that are red? Just use red tablecloth because you cannot dim the bulb. Usually red cellophane they sell
Mhm.
at Texas. I've seen that where you can walk up and get some extra cellophane and just uh, rubber band that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, I have a box trailer for my 28 inch, and it's retrofitted with lights and everything, so I have white. Astronomers are a lot like cockroaches. It's really hysterical, where it's like, hey, it's time to go. Oh, we're fine. Hit a white light,
Yeah.
we all scatter. Um, but my red lights on there, they're red. But just because they're red doesn't mean they're dim enough. So we actually use like I don't know what it's a nail polish paint, but he
Mm.
coats it several times and it helps just dim down that red light a little bit more. So
Another thing I would recommend is if you have a light that's red and it's too bright, that's actually a good thing because, like Kevin was saying, you can always knock it back. But Ruby Lith, Lith,
oh yeah, it's like
Ruby
a cling
Lith.
stuff. It's like a
Well, and
gel.
it's what they use for plays, stage productions. They used to use it in like magazine and newspaper work or something like that. You can get it on Amazon readily. Ruby Dash Lith, Lith. Super easy to find. It's not expensive and it goes on anything. You can cut it. It's super thin. Touch screens work through it. And you can take a few layers of that and just cut little squares of it, put that over, like you said, rubber band or tape it. It doesn't matter. But the biggest thing, like Kevin said, man, is when you have your red light and you're doing your thing and somebody asks you something, don't just like look at them, you know, because the second you do, even though it's red, it's like, and what's so funny is these guys walk around with them on and they'll be standing in a group of dudes, everybody's just talking and there's this like one guy with his headlamp on and everybody is kind of like they don't want to say anything, because they might be having it deep in a conversation, right? But they're kind of like, it's like, come on, man. But
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes.
But that's the nice thing about having it too bright is because there's
Yeah.
going to be times where it's like, oh, we need to, like at Texas, we've had to shut down quick with
Yes.
the rain coming and stuff before.
Yes.
Tear that off and go full red because you need to see what you're doing quick. And if you're
Yep.
in your backyard or out doing your thing, who cares?
Yeah,
Whatever.
exactly.
Light the night if you want to. I don't
On
recommend
full
it.
moons, and nights where the moon is bright, you actually kind of want some extra light if you're alone, not with other people, but if you're alone, because maybe your dark adaptation is like making the moon kind of hard to look at.
Yeah.
On nights when I'm doing the moon,
There's
I
ways
will.
around it. So.
Yeah, and so but at star parties, man, just make sure, just go into a dark room, set up your gear, And anything that's making light, just tape it off. It's
Mm-hmm.
super easy, you know.
Especially that Ruby stuff. It's really cool. I've had
Yep.
it on my iPad and stuff, and it just, and then you save it for later. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. And shout out to everybody in the chat. I haven't got to say hey to everybody, but thank y'all for watching us. This is cool.
Yeah,
This is
it'd be like a Grammy speech if we were here. It'd be like, I want to thank.
I want to thank the committee and or whoever. I don't know.
Yeah. So I know one thing you and I like to do a lot, Will, and I asked you a ton of questions before I got into his night vision astronomy. And it's becoming more obtainable. It's still pricey because of the night vision stuff. If you have a 20-inch plus Dob, shut up and go buy one. Like I get they're expensive. It was quite a stretch for me to be like, oh god, that's a lot. Like that's
It is insane.
it's
But
like $5,000 now, but when you hook that up, oh my god, like
it's a whole new world, like the song from Disney used to suggest.
yeah,
I
when
mean,
you hook that up, Jasmine comes out of the telescope and sings to you. Is how awesome it actually is.
yes, you're caressed by someone holding or wearing a fur coat. You know, it's just a warm, loving embrace of the night sky. It's not really that great, but it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth it. I mean, it's a niche thing, like you were saying earlier, because not a lot of people are doing this right now, but it is becoming more prevalent. Back in the days when I first got exposed to it, you know, this guy just brought a duffel bag of, he had Mod 3s and he had PVS 14s, and I think the one that came before the 14, PVS 10 or something. I can't remember exactly. Don't quote me on it because I'm not a night vision expert. I just use them, right? But I was blown away. I was seeing deer in the field down there, and I was like,
Oh, it's
I didn't
just
know
to
there were deer.
look through one is nuts.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, this is all it is. You know, I keep mine on my desk just because I want to know where it is at all times. This is all it is. It uses a single AA battery. This is a PVS 14.
Yeah, the same one.
Yeah, and like Kevin said, you can get adapters to screw this to your eyepiece, and then now you're I don't want to call it digital astronomy, but it's just an extra. It's like doubling your aperture of your telescope.
Kind of like
whatever.
putting nitrous on the scope. So
yeah, and then hitting full throttle, right?
it hits. I did an event for a group of friends out here, and I had a guy. I had a 20-inch obsession, and we did it 1 year, and we looked at the horse head. Some people could see it with the H beta. I could see it, but he couldn't see it. Then 2 years later, I came back with my 28. I could see a little bit easier. He still couldn't see it. Then the next year, he finally obtained the night vision. He's like, I could finally see it. It's like, great. It only took a $45,000 setup for you to actually look through and see the horse head. And
that's an expensive nebula.
It's an expensive nebula to look at.
If you're just going visual,
I did not pay all that money. That's just, if you're going to get a 28 of 3.3, that's probably what one would cost nowadays.
Right.
I had to scrape mine together with cardboard and masking tape.
As we all do. Yeah, exactly.
But when you hook one of these up with an H alpha filter, it's insane. I've shown people who've never looked through a telescope before the horse head. That's their first nebula is the horse head. It's like, well, just quit. Don't even bother buying a telescope because you just go right to the camera at that point.
This is it's a sticker that I made of an iPhone shot of the horse head. I know it's kind of, you can barely see it, but the horse head is right there. And that was it was just video that I was running of the horse head on a cell phone. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And like you said, it allows you to see. I've seen Einstein's cross, not like, oh, maybe it's there, because we were picking it out visually, like, oh, mate, there's a hint of it. No. It was stellar. And you could almost, the resolution wasn't quite good enough to separate the three nodes of it. There's four, but you can only really see three. But we could see the thin galaxy, and we could see the inner core of Einstein's cross easily. I mean, I filmed it on my cell phone. It's ridiculous. So
I do like using it from an advanced observers as a tool in a toolbox where it's like, I know this target is here.
Yes.
And I need to confirm it. Like, so this past weekend I was at the All Arizona Star Party, and I was looking at M46 with the 28. It was like 2:30 in the morning. Nebula and M46 was easy. No problem at all. But what a lot of people don't know is there's a very tiny planetary nebula just off from M46, known as
Is that one of the Palomars?
no Minovsky 1-18.
Oh, Minkowski. Oh, okay, yeah.
Faint little thing, 14th magnitude. I knew it was there. I've imaged it before. I knew it was a deep red nebula, so I knew H alpha would do it. H beta didn't do it. 14th magnitude and the 28 should have been doable from these skies. Oh, 03 didn't. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about it was I didn't have a bigger telescope for someone to put it on or confirm. So the night vision's nice to click that in there, and suddenly it's like we're working with a multimeter telescope essentially, and it's like there it is. It was still faint, but I confirmed that it was there and got it. So it's nice to just, like I said, it's nice to like hyperdrive your scope with it. So it's really quick, because there's a comment from the people behind me. You have to be very careful with night vision. If you're in the United States and you buy a Gen 2 or higher night vision, you cannot take it out of the United States, period. Usually what I would recommend, we did a whole episode on night vision, so if you want to go back and watch it, you can. But we go over all the specs, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, so on and so forth. But if you buy a night vision, you usually cannot leave the country of origin with that night vision, especially if we're talking Gen 3s. But night vision astronomy is its own bubble, and there's not a great amount of information out there on it. It's getting better, but it's kind of a niche. But if you want to know more, you can go back and watch our night vision episode from last year. I think we did it, and we go into a pretty deep dive in it. But it's awesome. It makes any telescope awesome, but there's some caveats and restrictions about it. How much is night vision?
Kidney. A kidney or a part of your lung, typically.
Yeah,
maybe
so
left arm. I don't know.
There's 3 generations of night vision: Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, and then there's kind of some middle ground stuff. Then there's green night vision, which you usually think about, and white phosphorus night vision. Now, the top of the line stuff nowadays, what Will and I have, and what you get from TeleVue, which is made by TNVC, is Gen 3 white phosphorus. That's what you want. Those sit about 4,500 right now for one of those. And then if you want to hook it to the telescope, you need to have TeleVue lenses to hook it to, which we all know are not just So I took my scope down.
Fit on Vixen too. The TeleVue stuff will fit on the Vixen eyepieces, but it's not quite right.
It works on the Explore Scientific 100 degrees too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I tried it on the 20. It worked pretty good on that. It's really awesome to have it. But yeah, my friends at Star Arizona, when we set it up out there, have dubbed it the $5,000 foot long is what it's called, which is accurate because it's about that long. It's a ton of stuff hanging off the side. But if you want to know more about it, loptics.com, Mike Lockwood, who's an amazing optician. He's a big guy for night vision, and he's doing some really cool stuff from Okie-Tex this year. He brought out some pretty sweet little setups there. But if you want to know more, we put the episode in the chat. It was a whole hour episode on night vision, and it's very much that information's not readily available in one nice convenient spot. So we tried to do that in that video. You go ahead and watch it. Very cool. This one's switching gears. Any visual tips for someone with an 80 millimeter refractor?
Yeah, averted vision, even in an 80 mil, can take you a long way. Averted vision, instead of looking directly at the galaxy or the nebula, just kind of look off to the side, because your eye is a little more sensitive around the peripheral. And at night you see more with the rods than the cones, and they're better on the sides. So any telescope, really, that's a good one to use. But 80 mils are, you can do a lot with those, surprisingly.
And you can kind of hone in your observing skill on a smaller telescope, because that then applies to everything that's bigger. I've met some people who are amazing observers for deep sky, and they're not using big telescopes like an 8-inch Schmidt or a Dob or a little refractor, but they're so good. It's like a musician who's like who knows by ear, where they've maybe they're not like a shredder or they can't do all the crazy nylon string stuff, but they're so honed in on their craft
Mm-hmm.
that they know these techniques to do what they do. That's it's great to start on something small. So don't discount that. It's like, well, all I have is this. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If we give a guitar to Jimi Hendrix and it's only $50, he will melt that thing if he was
Well,
still alive.
give Jimmy a right-handed guitar, and he'll make do and flip it to the left.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
That's what he was famous for, right? So,
but don't. I know there's a lot of people out there. It's like, and especially that come to my events where it's like, well, you have a 28. I'm not even going to set up. No, please set your stuff up. Like,
yeah,
I have this, or my team or my friends have this equipment because they've honed in on what they like doing, but they've been at it for like he's been at it for decades at this point, and me too. So we didn't just magically overnight all this stuff and you have all this equipment. No, I started with a little cheap 50 millimeter refractor. Will observed the Orion Nebula for the first time in broken binoculars. But you hone your craft, and then when the money becomes available or you find something that's bigger, oh, my camera disappeared. It's all those skills continue along with you. So yeah, averted vision's really good, and just getting out and observing, and you get to know how seeing conditions affect things more. So all those little things are great starters, but don't ever be discouraged that, well, I don't have the biggest telescope ever. You don't have to. Some of the best observers in the world don't have the biggest telescope, but you know what they are doing? They're out observing.
Yep. And people like us, like me and Kevin, come up to us, man. We're at a star party. You got your scope up, and whatever. We would love to show you objects in ours. So, kind of by proxy, you kind of have a 28 or a 22 with us, right? Because we're going to allow you to come over and have a look. So you're not missing out on anything. Don't get the FOMOs and the fear of missing out on that side of it. If you come to a star party, you're going to look through massive Dobbs and other optics. And then you can kind of, so maybe you've never been to a star party. Don't go out and buy some crazy thing. Go to a couple star parties and then be like, oh, I see how they're doing it. I see how they're doing it. I wouldn't do it that way, but that looks pretty good. And, you kind of eat the fish and spit out the bones as you go. And that's pretty important because you can spend as much money as you want in this hobby, but that isn't going to really help you.
Yeah, I've met a couple guys who've come out over the years who have like an LX200. It's always the LX214 guys. I don't know what about it. I bought the biggest telescope that I could afford, blah, 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 blah. They set it up and they have no idea what they're doing. And then 2 years later, they're done and they sell it and they get out of the hobby. Well, you don't need all of that. Like if you have an 80 millimeter refractor, go outside, get Sky Safari on your phone, look up what's going on. Hey, M31, the Andromeda Galaxy is up. Go see if you can see it. M81, M80. You find challenge targets within the aperture ranges. And just because I have a 28 and Will has a 22, it doesn't get in. If you try to observe the frickin' Virgo cluster, everyone's like, wow, you have a big telescope. It must be awesome. No, it's even worse because now there's all these little fuzzy things in the background. And it's like, well, you have night vision. It must be better. No, it's
galaxy hop. Yeah.
Yeah, there's crap everywhere. So you hone in on the apertures that you have. Like, okay, if you have an 80 millimeter, go out in the backyard. Find M15 tonight. Find M81 and M82 later in the evening. Find M31. Maybe you can get M32 and M110. Like, try to push what your scope can do.
Oh, yeah. Those 80 mils. I mean, think about what Messier had. He had like a 2-inch, and it was like terribly polished glass. Mm-hmm. Even William Herschel had a 50-inch mirror, but it was speculum, and it was constantly tarnishing and so they had another mirror that was being polished so that when this one tarnished over like a period of few days, they could switch them out. Right. So, and his mirror was like 40% reflectivity. Ours is probably in the 90s. Upper 80s, 90s. Yeah. So we're dealing with better optics these days. So even an 80 mil or something in that range is going to be better than what these original guys and gals.
Galileo would have killed to have a short tube 80. Like,
oh man,
killed.
It would have blown his whole world up to have. I mean, I've seen Jupiter in so much detail in my 22. It would have probably blown Galileo's mind, completely. And that's kind of cool. But we're walking in their footsteps, because we're pointing and a telescope at the same thing they were looking at, which
Yeah.
is there's something special about that for sure.
Yeah, one of the best views I've ever had. It was 120 millimeter f8.3 achromat, 300
Mm,
bucks on the used market, maybe. M51 was just awesome in it.
wow.
I just and getting to darker skies is a big. If you
Mm,
really want to push what your telescope could do, you cannot see everything in a lifetime with that 80 millimeter refractor. If you get to dark skies, you will not be able to see everything you can with that little telescope. So don't discount it.
exactly.
So,
Oh
but yeah,
man, and panning a little 80 mil around the Milky Way at like Texas or something,
oh, you're
just like
busy.
dancing. There's more to look at over there than you'll have time for at the whole star party. You can come for 10 years and you'll still be scanning that area and being like, wow, what's that? So yeah, you're exactly right.
Or the moon. I'm not a big lunar guy, but every time I look at the moon at high power, it's like I don't do enough of this because
Yeah.
just get a map of all the craters. Like our mutual friend Robert Reeves, who's a moon fanatic.
A moon guru, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's always dropping knowledge about like this crater is blah 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 blah. Okay, and then there's challenge targets on the moon like the lava domes, which I have always wanted to do and just haven't. But yeah, you can keep yourself busy no matter what size telescope you've got.
Absolutely. And don't discount the moon, for those of y'all that are watching. I used to hate the moon. That's why I literally named myself Deep Sky Dude, because I like deep sky stuff. But I started doing a lot of live streams on the moon and kind of just showing it to the general public. And like over time that I started to fall in love, and now I'm actually kind of obsessed with the moon because it's the closest world to us that you get to see with a lot of detail. And like you were saying, man, it's incredible what you can see up there. So the moon is an awesome target, and everybody should do it.
The question in here, I'm trying to. Oh, Will you start Observer first, or you making that masterpiece's soundtrack after the Observer?
Oh, that's Alan, a friend of mine who's a fellow musician
Yeah, Alan
on
Barbosa.
Instagram. What's up, Alan? Yeah. Well, I assume that's meaning to the music, and I mean, I've been a musician almost my whole life. Probably was an astronomer first, astronomer, right? But the music that I make definitely uh, is inspired by just those nights. The nights where it's like about to be dark and you're just enveloped with your buddies and everybody's talking, and the sky's going to be clear, and that's kind of the moments that I try to capture with the music. Sometimes I guess I nail it. Sometimes maybe I go a different direction with it, which is okay, because as a space instrumental musician or whatever, I do definitely branch out, and kind of go into some weird areas. But luckily, everybody that listens to the music goes with me, and so that's kind of cool. And so I appreciate everybody who's listened and bought the records, because I'm actually coming up on 12 million streams across all the platforms. That includes TikTok, Deezer, Napster, which is still a thing, with hilariously.
Didn't know.
It's actually one of the most legitimate streaming sources out there, better than Spotify. Um, so thank y'all to everybody who's listened, because I would have never guessed that I could get to 12 million streams. That's a pipe dream. And
But yeah, don't. I'll just shout out that real quick. Don't just go to Spotify and just stream it. Go if you've got it. I have all four and albums, and
thank you, man.
I
That's
I plug my headphones in. I actually help my kids go to sleep with it sometimes, just because it's very calming. But when
mm-hmm.
I'm out observing and it's just me in the backyard, all four albums plus like Stellar Drone and Geodesium and a lot of that ambient stuff. I love that stuff because it helps tune
Yeah.
out everything. But
Mm-hmm.
don't just stream it. Go over and buy it. Support Will. They're not that expensive. So go over and help Will out and support him. So
Yeah, thanks. And if y'all buy the records, let me know. Send me a message or something, and I'll send you some stickers as a way to say thank you. I'm just gonna send them to you, because that's huge for me. Like you were saying, Kevin, it's like a streaming. You get paid a billionth of a penny anytime somebody streams it, right? It's literally nothing. That's why I'm not a millionaire sitting on 12 million streams, right? It's literally chump change that I've made on there. But It's not about that for me. I'd be making, you know how it is. I'd be making music whether or not it was getting streamed or not. I don't care. I just have to get it out. You know, when you're a guitar player, you come up with stuff on accident, right? And that one
Yeah.
riff leads to another, and then now you have a song. You know,
There's a
and it's
lot
like,
of times I will crunch on the same thing I am right now, especially when I mess with a different tuning. I'll crunch on all of that. And there's a lot of times during the day, like I work from home. I have my kids every other week at more personal stuff than you guys need to dig into. But there's times where I'm just at home and it's quiet and I've been staring at a screen for hours and it's like I need to switch gears for a second. And
yep.
sometimes it's nice to just take 5 or 10 minutes, plug the guitars in and just headphones on, and I don't know what I'm listening to. I'm just noodling around and something strikes and you go with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Stream of consciousness. And like we were saying earlier, man, it's hard to kind of be upset about anything when you're riffing, you know what I mean? And that's what I love about guitar.
That's your new album, Stream of Consciousness.
Of consciousness, yeah. And I love titles. And Kevin, you've heard some of the funny song titles that I have coming on the next couple of albums. I'm not gonna put them here because then they'll probably get stolen, because there's some funny stuff. But when you're making instrumental music, you kind of have to put it in the title, right?
Yeah, we were driving on Texas Star Party. And he was playing us. This is before I got to talk to you a little bit more. But he was putting on some of the stuff in the drive, and there's some of them on your past albums that are pretty good. I can't find the one I'm thinking of. It's gonna.
And thank you for exposing all of the Skywatcher and Celestron people to my music. So Greg Bragg is one of the coolest dudes I've met in astronomy. And he's just
retired. Well, no, you might meet him. He's still out doing things. Oh yeah, hey. Strawberry Milk Dromeda. That's a good one. So,
okay, cool. Well, thank you for that was a really weird, edgy kind of piece for me. It's not really kind of space music. It's actually kind of leaning hip hop a little bit.
6 Trillion Miles, I think, is my go-to one though. So.
Yeah, now that. My greatest hits. That one was one of those stream of consciousness where I just sat down at a synth and it just sort of happened, and it was just like, ooh, okay, I like this.
Yeah,
right?
I need white noise to like think, and that's kind of what this stuff does. It's like, oh, there's music going on, but it's like it's lower in the brain to where it's kind of like you're riding on this like sea of just background noise, and then it's kind of like your mind just starts to run with it. It's like idea for product or idea for whatever. And
well, good. I'm glad that it can inspire awesome sales and stuff that we all get to benefit from Skywatcher and all that. That's what we all like, right? Mount Madness and everything.
There you go.
Well, I've heard a lot like it for study and stuff like that,
yeah.
which is even thought about that. That was never even a thought in my head. I was just going to put this music out, see what happened, right?
That's the best part about it.
Yeah.
Well, that was our hour. I know we could talk to Will for probably a whole nother hour because we barely dove into music. Maybe next year we'll do something because we need ideas for next year episodes. So if you have any ideas, email us at info@skywatchusa.com. Next week is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., so there is no episode next week. We'll probably be stuffed with turkey and stuff, and I don't want to talk at that point. So,
but be a stream.
There you go.
On this.
You can just watch this episode again or go listen to his music if you need something to do. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. I hope you have a great holiday next week. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@skywatchusa.com. Please go over to iTunes or Android if you're one of those green bubble typing people. Civilized. You should be a civilized blue bubble person in the text chats. But head over there, pick up Deep Sky Dude, help him wrap up the year. Go shoot up the album sales over there. They're like $9. Like, you have no excuse. So, but yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you guys in 2 weeks, not next week, the week after, and we'll talk about what's up and introduce you to the last totem target of the year. We got a ton of stuff on sale as well, so order that up. Don't be that person that waits till the December 22nd, calls us up that you're all upset that you didn't get the telescope that you wanted because you didn't order it. So head over there. But Will, thanks for hanging out with us. And
And yeah, the eclipse is coming. All I can say is get your mounts and your optics now.
Yes.
Right. The eclipse is coming and you want to be ready for that. But Kevin, thank you so much, man. Like when you asked me to be on here, I was like, no way, really? For real? Like this is awesome. Because I watch this show. Sometimes I don't catch it live, but I'll watch it later and listen to it while I'm doing chores or whatever. Because it's, I love to podcast and stuff, and y'all do a great job. And I'm forever thankful for Skywatcher. Y'all are a fantastic company. Your stuff is amazing. I have more than one thing from y'all that I've had to buy over the years because I just couldn't live without it. So thank y'all for. And y'all are awesome, Jeff and all the crew. You guys are awesome. And if you get a chance at a Star Party, go hang out with these guys, man. They're hilarious, they're fun, and they're great dudes. So thank y'all for having.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks, Will. And have a great weekend, guys. Clear skies, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day. See ya. Bye.
Bye, y'all.